One of my favorite stories is halal hot dogs. I had a student whose family brought in the book and they were sharing a lot about it. And a lot of my students are like, we don't even know what halal means. But by the end, they're like, we have to try halal hot dogs. My name, as Ariana had mentioned, is Tori Huynh. I am really excited to be speaking at this conference, and my subjects are these are the learning objectives for today. I hope to share some ways to create an inclusive classroom library that celebrates our multilingual learners. I also am going to share strategies from the guided language acquisition design. So that's a lot of hands-on manipulative movement activities, as well as incorporating call and response and songs that practices repetition and helps student engage in language development and stays engaged for all learners in our classroom. I'll also be sharing different ways that I use talking points and liaisons and translators to help engage my families, as well as using different techniques to create a classroom culture where all students feel safe, respected, and represented. And then at the end, I will take questions and feel free to share about what next steps that you might take to create a more inclusive and equitable learning environment in your classroom. So in the beginning of the year, I create family posters with the families in my classroom as well as class flags. So in this picture, you see flags that are represented in my classroom, and I think it's really important to make sure we utilize the correct flags. So if you see this Vietnamese one, we did print out the wrong one, and we were able to switch it back to one that represents the family from South Vietnam. But another way that you could utilize it is you could you could put like the country name, you could put pictures of each student. Um, and then we also make classroom posters. So I already at Meet the Teacher, I have posters and they're not too big because I want to be cognizant of which families do have pictures they can print. So I encourage them to draw pictures, add print of like different things they eat at home or different backgrounds and cultures and things that they celebrate onto this family poster. I didn't include a picture of it, but it stays up on my wall the entire year, and we use it as a show and share in the beginning of the year to create a classroom community and make connections to our peers. And a lot of the times, it's like the same language, or maybe they've seen something before, or they also celebrate something very similar to their peers. And it's a great way to start that conversation about like, what is your background like, and how are we connected in this space? And the flags and the posters, they stay up year round. And it's also just great for like students to make those connections. And one of the heartwarming stories I wanted to share about the flags is that the students go back to it like throughout the year. They're like, oh, like I'm from this country, you're from that country. These colors are similar. And at the end of the year, I had some students create every flag in Legos and they're like connecting them to the students. So they really feel engaged and empowered in this space to be themselves, but also share that with their families and with their share that with their families and with their peers as well. So this is a great way to create that space already welcoming in the beginning of the school year. I also in my classroom, I use a lot of call and response. And what you'll see and notice in my presentation is that so much of it is with repetition to create that language acquisition, but it's also a call and response with a lot of repetition to create that structure and the standards of building those routines and expectations, as well as building vocabulary. In my school, I teach in a Title I school, which means that 90% of my student population lives under the poverty line, and a lot of them come in with no English, no educational background. They don't know a lot, but it's built in those routines to help them build upon their vocabulary. So what I do in my classroom is I have a chime and I go bing bing, and they have their paws up. We're tigers, so I'm like paws up, eyes on the speaker, and we do a call and response for every part of the day. So for example, I say like number one. And they repeat number one. I can say push in your chair and I model. I'm like, push in your chair. And they practice it with me. Push in your chair. Number two. They say number two. I was like, walk to the carpet. And it helps build that routine to the point that by the end of the year, they're able to tell me what the routines are. They're able to say, number one, do this. Number two, do this. And I do this for like coming to the carpet, starting stations, coming in from lunch. It's embedded throughout the day. And it's giving them the practice and the vocabulary at a low risk because everyone has to call and respond. Everyone has to be able to tell me what's happening next. And it really builds upon that language of like, it's okay to make mistakes and try it, but it also sets the expectations like, this is what it looks like in our classroom. This is what it sounds like. Um, So pairing with like the routines of the call and response, I also have a looks like, sounds like, and feels like chart that we make um, with the class. So it's a visual tool with a three chart, and I'll show you a picture of it in the next slide, but it has very clear expectations and it creates the classroom norms and procedures that the students help create. So we make the class chart as a class and they come up with their examples. And I like to add like different symbols and drawings in case students can't always read it. And it's all of their examples that they come back to every time. So we build one for like the carpet. So what does it look like? And I draw eyes. What does it sound like? What does it feel like on the carpet? And they tell me, they're like, it looks like we're sitting crisscross. And I always draw like pretzel. We're sitting either mountain, I draw a mountain, or we're sitting mermaid. And they come back to their like, I want to sit mermaid. They can point, and that gives them like a visual cue, but it also helps build like the vocabulary, and then they can match it with the words. Um, I see, yeah, Christy, you said you love those as well. I really enjoy using it. I don't have an example from my classroom, but this is one I found on the internet. Um, so everything that I add is what the students tell me, and I like to do it based on the color. So it looks like will be one color, sounds like, and then feels like I put a heart. And a lot of the times the students are like, I feel safe or I feel happy. And it's whatever like words you want them to use, like saying please and thank you, or like you can give them sentence frames. And anytime we're on the carpet or anytime we're at like a station, I pull it back up so they can refer back to it. And those are the words that they use throughout the year. Like those are the sentence frames that they use, and it builds that vocabulary. That's really important for our very important for our multilingual learners, but all these strategies are helpful for all students. So it's very student centered and it's very students like, this is my work. This is how I'm going to show that I'm safe in our classroom community. So I was really excited when I was listening to the previous session about the alphabet books that she had mentioned, and I'm actually going to do that next year too. So thank you so much for that example. So I create big books, which models like fluency and like complex sentence structures that sometimes students don't come to school already having. Um, and they're basically just like slides that I print and then I put them onto big construction paper, and I do it based on like subjects. So like all of our social studies and science are all in green, and they start to notice by the middle of the school year, like all of math is in blue paper and then language arts is in yellow. And they really like it because it's like a bigger book that we keep in our classroom library with predictable like patterning and language that they can read back to you. And it really showcases the academic vocabulary that we want to teach the students from our curriculum. What I really like in Fairfax County is that we already have our curriculum like made, like we can pull it up, and I use the authentic pictures, meaning like real pictures that they can connect to from our lesson, and I put it onto our big books. So what I do is I start as a team, we make PowerPoint slides and I read it first. I'm like, okay, like this is our book. And then I point, like practice tracking to help point. And then once I put it onto a big book, it's accessible to our students to also point and also flip the page and read it. It is very repetitive, and I'm going to show you an example that we did. It's repetitive, and we also have movements that students create. Um, yes, thank you. I see. I'll read your comment in a bit, but it's the bolded part is the part that's repeated. And this is why it really helps. Like you want to be very um, like I guess, like intentional with what you put as your big phrase that repeats throughout the entire book. And if you see it, it says like the important thing about animals is that they have body coverings. It repeats itself every single page 2 times on the page. So in this lesson, we were trying to teach body covering. So we say the important thing about animals is that they have body coverings, and the students do the same thing. We say in that same intonation so that when they read it, they say it the same way. We say some animals have feathers. Cardinals have feathers, but, and I always pause because then the students want to repeat it. But the important thing about animals is that they have body coverings. So that's repeated. And so they start to pick up on the pattern and they want to say it and they want to repeat it and show the movements. And that really helps with connecting to the lesson. If we do like different lessons, they start to like pick up on the language that we're trying to teach. So I have a structure. It could be used in like primary grades, but you can also differentiate it for upper grades. But this is the structure. It's like the important thing about money is that they have value. And then you can talk about like pennies are worth 1 cent, nickels are worth. So you say like pennies are worth 1 cent. But the important thing about money is that they have value, right? So you could utilize that for any curriculum. So if you have any ideas already popping in your mind of how you could use a big book, feel free to send that in the chat or jot it down so that you can utilize this structure to continue that like building knowledge and building like academic language in your classroom. And you can do it with any subject areas. And my students really love it when they can take ownership and they start reading it to the class. So I poll students, I'm like, okay, 1 student per page. And it really works because even the students who are still learning the language can repeat the words and they feel like they can read the words or they at least know the patterning. So it gives them that like ownership and authentic like sense of like, oh, this is my book, this is my page. I can read the words, I can point, and I know exactly what's next. So again, it's like low risk and it helps build it builds like their confidence in reading. And then, of course, it's in our classroom library, so they can pick it up and they can read it throughout the year. This is another example. It's the hopes and dreams that we did, I believe, the first week of school. And it's like, what do we hope to learn? And I took these pictures at the very last week of school, and you can see like it's very like used and they read it every single day. They love to see how their writing has changed and they like to connect to their friends. So this is like, I want to learn about shapes. And what I remembered about this student is that by the end of the year, when we already taught the Magic E, he's like, what was I thinking? Like, I wrote shapes, but that says shaps. So they can go back and reflect as well. This one says, I want to learn about or how to read. And the last one says, I want to learn about computers. And they learn about every single one of those. So, like, claps for them. All right, so big books, you can take big books and you can create it with any subject area and put in your classroom library, and the students love it. So moving on to with more classroom libraries, this one's a big one, is creating a diverse classroom library that reflects your students' identities. Um, and what I really like about this is with every single student in my classroom, it's like an opportunity to learn more about their culture and their background and find books that they can relate to. But not only do we want these books to be mirrors where they can see themselves and feel validated in the space, but we can also have these books as like windows where they can learn more about different cultures and develop empathy, and as sliding doors where they can experience different perspectives other than their own. Um, and what I like to do is invite families in the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, the end of the year to come in to our space. And a lot of the times families are like, I don't read in English. Like I don't speak the language. And I'm like, that's okay. Like please bring a book from your culture. And if you want to read in your language, it's even better. And the students feel really connected to those read alouds and those mystery readers, especially when they read in their home language and they're able to translate or tell you more. One of my favorite stories is halal hot dogs. I had a student whose family brought in the book and they were sharing a lot about it. And a lot of my students are like, we don't even know what halal means. But by the end, they're like, we have to try halal hot dogs. And the mom left the book as like part of our classroom library. And that was so well loved because those students made connections to that mom. She also wore a hijab, and we had a student in our classroom who wore a hijab. And they were like, oh my goodness, like I see someone that looks just like me in my classroom speaking like the same language, same background. And I think that those are like the really important, powerful moments in our classrooms when we can really engage with our families, but also have them bring that like self-identity and validation into the classroom. I also follow some Instagrams, so I put their usernames on here. They have really good book titles, but these are some that I have in my classroom, and it's really great just to like have students really feel like these books belong to them. So some of these books, and I have my entire classroom library is very diverse, and they live in book boxes. Like they never come out. And sometimes they're like, yeah, I can share this book. But students really feel engaged to our classroom library books, especially the ones that we have read aloud that connect to each one of them. So these are just a few that I really like. And I also try to focus on the illustrations because with our multilingual learners, a lot of the times when we have independent reading, they're like, oh, I can't read, like I don't want to read. And it becomes like a dispute where they're like, I don't want to read, like I'm just going to sit, I can't read these words. And I really, when we're reading, oh, me too, Jody. I love picture books. I hoard them in my classroom. I really focus on the illustrations, and I'm like, wow, like especially with the Festival of Colors, it's so bright and beautiful, and there's so many things to see. So when they're reading, I'm like, it's okay. You can read the pictures, you can look at the illustrations, and you can tell me the story that you think is happening. And that really creates like a sense of, I am a reader, I am a leader. And a lot of the times with picture books, the illustrations are just like phenomenal. And sometimes the kids noticing, they're like, oh, there's a bird on this page and it moves to this other spot. And it's like, hide and go seek. And then every kid wants to do it. And it's super fun and engaging. So the library space really brings that like, again, the validation and also like ways to connect with other friends in the classroom. Oh, I see, Cami, you mentioned that. Yeah, very nice. Magic books, folded books. Yeah. I think, yeah, really focusing on like the important sentences really helps. Yeah. All right. So moving on, we have pictorial input charts. These are my favorite things to, or favorite way to teach in a classroom. And once I show you a picture, I need you to Google pictorial input charts because the one that I show is like the very like beginning stage of my poster, but they go into such depth and detail, and it's such a great like visual chart that I love to hang up in my classroom. So these charts have consistent patterns with like colors. It has visuals with our authentic visuals, and then we always embed like some sort of gesture to help students recognize which word. It also embeds a lot of academic language, so like language from the curriculum that we want them to learn, and it creates a very active learning environment. And my biggest tip is that I always project what I want the picture to show, and I trace it first and I label it, and I teach each section like a day at a time with the color matching. So let me go ahead and show you. We do like the 5 regions of Virginia. So we start with like coastal plain, and then later I add in like the pictures of the beach, right? And then I pair this with a song that I teach them. So that will actually be the next couple of slides. So I'm gonna move forward, and these slides will be like you'll have access to them by the end of this presentation, so you can go back and see them next to each other. So I use songs, again, like I mentioned, like consistent language. It has gestures, it has visuals. And what I do is I always input my slides into Magic School AI. They have a song generator, and I use like, we're learning about the Virginia regions. Please use these exact keywords, like of the different regions, to the song The Wheels on the Bus for first graders. It's really important to be very specific in what you want, so it generates like an easy song for students to learn. So I put in my slides and it came out with this. And then I matched the visuals with the visuals on the chart. I matched the colors back so it matches. And then we go through with the class and they come up with which words are important. So then which words need movement. So we have like the coastal plain goes wide and or flat and wide, flat and wide, flat and wide. The coastal plain goes flat and wide all through Virginia. And they come up with all the different movements. So they said like rolling green, touches the sky. They have are growing strong. They love to show me their muscles. Plateau miners, this one's harder, was dig for coal. And because it's a song that we sing as like an engagement before the lesson, and again, every part is taught like with each color. It's like so it's day by day, but by the end of it, they get really into it. They want to sing it, they want to point, they want to show you can like make it a game where you have the images and they match it. They really like it and they know every region, they know what it looks like, what like the region like looks like, feels like, they can match it and they really enjoy it. Everything is like a game and it's like it's their song. Yeah. So I really encourage putting it into Magic School AI. It makes it so easy. You just put in your slides and it generates and then you can utilize it in your classroom. I also just use other songs. Yeah, I'm I do a lot of like singing, dancing movements in my classroom and they really like it, especially in the lower grades. Um, yeah, and the pictorial input charts, they do match and they really do enjoy it. I also use other songs for like for school as well. We have like Be Kind to start the school day. We sing it every day and they love it. Double song is really great for those high doubles. The President's song, we have students who came in with like not a lot of English and they can sing you the whole President song, tell you first president all the way to the end, and they really enjoy singing these at home as well. So similar to the pictorial input chart, you can utilize that with the song, and then you could also utilize it with like comparative input charts once you start teaching different parts of the curriculum. It's like a Venn diagram, like a compare and contrast, but it's a lot easier because it doesn't have the circles, and I'll show you in the next slide. But what I do is, again, color coordinate. I use gesture, use the same vocabulary, and it's student driven. So this is actually my class's favorite poster. They would not let me throw out. They said I had to keep it because it was all from their knowledge. And it's so we already taught George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and they're telling me what they've learned. Um, and anytime they tell me something, I write it in one color. So if they say like George Washington was the first president, I'll write first president. And if they compare, the line in between shows like how they compare. They could say like George Washington is the first president, just like, and then I'll put like, just like Thomas Jefferson is the third president. So it's whatever they can share of what they've learned. And it's also a great way to assess the students. Whatever they share, I put it on. And then I also have pictures to match. And they really, really took ownership of this one. And then last but not least is Talking Points. This is an app that I use in my classroom and my school utilizes it as well. It's a two-way like engagement for families and it makes the language very accessible because whatever language you send it in, it sends it to the families in their home language. And they're also able to change their home language if that's not the language that they can read or that they would like. And what I like about it is that you can share like real-time photos and videos with families, but it's also a great way for families to let you know, like, hey, I'm picking up my student early, or they are supposed to take the bus. I think it's a really great way to keep families engaged. We also utilize like parent liaisons who already have a school home partnership with families. Those are really great ways to have those parent teacher conferences, just share about how students are doing. And we also have at my school, we have a phone line where we can call and speak with interpreters of different languages who will also call the families for you. So that's another way to engage your families, but also feel like their voice can be heard. Um, So that's all that I have for you today. I wanted to make sure I saved 5 minutes at the end for questions, but I wanted you to take this time to reflect on any tools that you could commit to using in the classroom. I tried to share resources that you can use right away from the start, things that are more hands-on that you could easily access and utilize with your classroom. But I really do appreciate everyone for coming out and um, experiencing what it's like to be in Miss Huyn's classroom, in a first grade classroom. But thank you so much to everyone for coming out and committing to like feel ensuring that our students are safe and feels welcomed in your space. I'll open the floor to any questions, and I'll check the chat. Oh, thank you, Jody.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tori. I think we're all going to be singing about the 5 reasons of Virginia going on from here. That's so catchy.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Let's see. It looks like one question just came in on the Q&A. It says, do you use the pictorial charts in addition or instead of word walls?
I use, in addition, word walls are still in the classroom. Pictorial charts are like I guess it's like to show it's like a graphic organizer, but it shows like you could do like a flower and have the different parts, and you could have the vocabulary bolded, and then that could also add on to your word wall. So it's all like together. I do have the link to Magic School AI in my slides. And that should also be accessed through Clever. I know my school, my county has it. Um, yeah, so I think the slides were sent, so you'll be able to access it. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Tori. This was really such a wonderful presentation with so many strategies. I could just see following the chat that everyone was very inspired and ready to go back on with some new ideas. So thank you so much.